painting and prayer for me are the same. I feel like on a great day, I'm coming into my studio. I feel surrendered. I feel recollected, ready to go, and I'm able to kind of enter into this sort of embodied and mental state of prayer. At the same time, on not so good days, that can still happen. It just might not be in this perfect, slow, peaceful way that I'm describing. And I think God can use an artist who comes into their studio with open, empty hands, no matter what, no matter how that day's going or how they feel, whatever. Like God can completely operate there. And so believing that, that's really how I try to approach my work and everything that I do as it relates to painting, drawing, printmaking, talking to another artist who I'm collaborating with on a project. Everything everything can become a prayer and can be approached from this disposition of heart if we choose it. It's really up to you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creativity Worth Expressing. I'm your host, Ryan Anthony Hernandez, and today I'm with a special guest coming all the way from the East Coast. I'm here with Erin McAtee. Erin, thank you for joining the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
To really get started, or before we even really get started, can you share with us what is your current form of creativity?
Well, right now I'm actually working on a book. We'll see where exactly it goes, but I've been transcribing a lot of my notes from my sketchbook and taking scans of paintings and drawings I've been doing and kind of putting them together right now in a Word doc. And so it's a little early stages, but hoping to do an event probably in my apartment with an immersive experience of reading the book and sharing about it and maybe doing some projections on my walls. So that's right now what's happening for me creatively.
Okay, so you mentioned a book. I was a little surprised because I wasn't expecting to hear a book.
Yeah.
Is this like a uh what kind of book is this?
Well, I envision it being sort of like a large scale zine, like a almost like a somewhere between a coffee table art book and a zine. So very kind of straddling that line between informal, sort of underground art book, art and writing book, um, but also something that you could put on your coffee table and someone could pick it up and kind of
Okay.
be surprised by it, really. So something like that.
Okay, so it's like an art book, kind of
Yeah, yeah,
art,
basically.
a coffee art book. Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I have a variety of guests and some write like different fiction, fantasy. So I wasn't sure if it was in one of those genres, but as you've just mentioned, it really reflects. Is it only your art, or will it be reflecting other people's art as well?
It's just my work, and the writing itself goes somewhere between journalistic and observational, and at times poetic, and more of a sort of a spiritual diary writing. It kind of fluctuates and goes between the two.
So would you say that your main creative form of expression is painting or drawing, or what would you say?
Yeah, I would say a combination between painting, printmaking, and drawing. And so I'm very two-dimensional, I guess, in my artwork, but I love to infuse the three-dimensional and invite performers to collaborate with my work and to create performances spanning from dance to poetry to theater to really activate. the images that are flat or that are on fabric or on paper, whatever it is, and kind of bring them to life and give them multiple dimensions.
So when it comes to art, it really can go in so many different roads. And here on this podcast, I've interviewed people who are doodlers. I've had people who like use kind of like arts and crafts. Others who, when they paint, they'll actually had one guest who kind of like, geez, I can't remember his name from Spain. There was this artist. He would fall asleep and then he would wake himself up and he would have these vivid dreams and he would paint. But what I'm trying to get to is there's so many forms of painting, abstract, etc., impressionist. Uh, is how would you describe your painting? Is it your paintings? Sorry, is it sacred art or what?
Yeah, it's a good question. I get that quite often. And it's interesting you bring up the term sacred art because I think that that term often is thrown around a lot as one sort of like category of what sacred or quote unquote Catholic art could look like. And I don't know, I'm curious what you think about this actually too. I almost want to put the question back to you of what that means to you. But in terms of my work in particular, the aesthetic of it goes between representative and more figurative. So images that like you see a person or a portrait and you know that it's a person. Maybe it's a person that I know. Maybe it's an image of the Blessed Mother or the Blessed Mother and Jesus together in a moment of during the Passion or something. Um, but it can also go completely to the other end of the spectrum in terms of the way that it looks and how much you can kind of recognize a figure in it or not. It starts to kind of become more abstract. And so, really, I just follow impulses. I follow sort of what comes up in my prayer life and images that I associate with anything from the daily readings, something that stuck out from the mass readings in the liturgy in the Catholic Church that day, to something that I see or someone I see out and about in the world that just kind of hits me. And I feel inspired to create, to either create something very realistic based on that experience or something that feels like there's not really a way to capture it very realistically. And maybe it's like a spiritual experience or you might say a vision, an image that comes to my mind, to my heart, that I feel needs to be captured, but I can't quite do that through representative means. So I'll take a more abstract approach with that. But I really try to not limit myself in either direction because I love all all ends of the spectrum when it comes to more representational work to more abstract work.
Okay, so is it so it's not sacred art, or for you, like your art, like what would be like the I don't know, like what genre or in what category would you put it in?
It's hard to put a category
It
on
is.
my work.
But
And again, I guess that's my question as well for you that might help me answer it better is what is sacred art in your opinion?
in my opinion, well, I'm gonna stick with like a Catholic approach, and I know for the podcasters or listeners, I'm very neutral, but I'm Catholic, and I'm gonna kind of take a Catholic approach on this. I think because I do deal with a lot of people from other faiths as well, so I'm gonna try to take this kind of like the I'm gonna take this in two ways. First, the non-Catholic approach, because there are people who are not Catholic, but yet even their art can be in some ways sacred to them in a personal way. So you have that going. But then in Catholicism, religious art, I'm not sure if there are like rules or laws or like standards to meet a criteria for like sacred art to be displayed, for example, in the Vatican. And I remember when Pope Francis had a nativity scene, a lot of people were kind of bashing one of the nativity scenes as looking too, I think, either futuristic or they look like astronauts or something like that. So it really it's hard to please everybody, but I think personally, a person can it can be very subjective where they find their art to be quote unquote sacred, or they can replace that with inspirational or motivational art. But then we're dealing with Catholicism. It's that's where it's like, can can your art be sacred both in the personal camp, where for you it's this is sacred, you're making it sacred, reflecting the Gospels or scriptures or the Virgin Mary or whatever it is. But can it also fit in the standards of the Catholic Church? I think if you can get both of them, I mean, that'd be cool. But if not, in the end of the day, it's, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, it's interesting to hear your thoughts on it too. And I feel like sometimes I'm just loosely surveying a lot of people about this because I'm curious. But yeah, I think there is something to be said about, for example, iconography, artists who are working in um, this very ancient and kind of ritualistic style. There is like a depth and a dimension to what, even when they're picking up a paintbrush and starting to write the icon, it's there's like thought that goes into it, there's prayer that goes into it, and there's a very tight order and obedience that that iconographer is following because of the ritual of that practice
Hmm.
and what the ultimate goal of the icon is for, right? And providing this window to the divine for the viewer. And so in that regard, I think it's good to have standards of, okay, like what is devotional art? Maybe I would more reference it this way.
Mm.
What is devotional art and what is sacred art that is meant for the purpose of prayer for the people? And honestly, depending on the day, I kind of go back and forth on how I feel or what I think about, what do those things have to look like? What is the aesthetic of uh, of an object or an image that leads someone to deeper prayer? Some days I'm like, yeah, I kind of prefer a really beautiful ancient Eastern icon, and like knowing that there's something sort of alien yet like very ordered about that image that leads me to deeper prayer and to deeper mystery and kind of contemplation of God. But I also love work of artists like there's an artist named Alphonse Borisovich who is an amazing artist. In my organization, I have a nonprofit called Art House 2B, which is an arts nonprofit here in New York City. And we do a lot of gallery exhibitions, among other things. We've shown his work multiple times and just really look to him for a lot of guidance in this area because he's an older, established artist of the Catholic faith who has really found his own voice in a very contemporary aesthetic language that he is using to put forth images of faith and icons in a different way than kind of the standard traditional what we might label as like quote unquote sacred art. And so I think he has had kind of varied experiences sharing his artwork in church spaces and in sacred spaces. And so I look at his work and personally find a lot of beauty, I find a lot of depth and a source of prayer and nourishment. But someone else might look at it and not feel the same. And so I think I guess it's a complicated, interesting question that I think we should, as fellow Catholics, we should really be keeping this conversation going and keep it at the fore because we're in a really interesting contemporary moment, and we're in a moment that feels uh, very important and very wrought, or maybe fraught is the word I'm looking for. It's just there's so much happening in the art world outside of the church, as well as the arts and kind of artists trying to figure out who they are inside of the church. And there's a lot of kind of, I don't know, disparity or tension in both worlds, really. I don't know that I see these worlds as having separate issues sometimes, because I think in both you find a real crisis of identity of okay, maybe in the contemporary sort of secular gallery world of New York City, I as an artist am trying to find like a way to authentically share my voice as an artist and to share my work in a way that I don't feel like I have to just succumb to the current trends of what's selling, what's marketable, what will get me a gallery show and like a patron, whatever. And to really stay like authentic and true to what my work needs to be and how I feel God is trying to use me and my work. But then also in the Catholic arts world, I think that I talk with a lot of artists about this who have a similar but different type of identity crisis of, well, I make this kind of art, it's a little avant-garde, it's whatever, this other type of thing that is not typically in a classical church setting or what you would perhaps categorize as sacred art, uh, so to speak. And so, where do I fit in there? How can I market my work and still maintain my authenticity and my voice, and the Holy Spirit working uniquely through me to create work that is nourishing for audiences, for people. So I know realize I'm going off on a big tangent, but I think you opened up something very big and something that feels very important to me, obviously. And I'm yeah, constantly working with artists who are navigating both worlds and trying to kind of come out without losing their souls or
Yeah.
losing who they are. So it's important.
So something you mentioned earlier about your book, going back to your book, was because I asked like what is it? Like what the heck kind of a book is it, you know?
Yeah.
And you were saying that it does have a journalistic uh, uh, touch to it as well as poetic. And then going to your art, going back and forth with between sacred and devotional. And it really is, I don't know, like trying to, listening to you, because with sacred art, like I mentioned before, like it can be a personal, where the artist finds this as sacred, but then when you're looking at the grand picture, when it comes to, okay, religion, and in this case, Catholicism, when you're really looking at it, uh, one, it can be sacred to you, but it has to really reflect the scriptures authentically and correctly, because very easily it can become, uh, maybe not intentionally, but it can become, I don't know what's the word. I don't want to use, I don't know, blasphemous art or
Like heretical.
heretic, yeah, or profane. I don't know. This is where I'm not really well versed, but it can easily go in that direction. So of course, when you're making art, it can be, like I said, sacred for you, but there's like a standard, and also there has to be beauty, like that's like it has to be beautiful, and there has to be some depth and reflection on the scriptures. But going with devotional, I I think looking at your art and seeing the struggle, or I don't know if it's a struggle, but kind of seeing like the back and forth. For me, I would probably describe, if I were you, I would describe it
Yeah, please,
as
please, love it.
uh devotional, just because like I don't I don't see that you are, um at least in my opinion, like confident to say yes, this is sacred art. Or I don't know if I don't see it, but at least at the moment it seems that the art you're doing is really a personal, prayerful journey, instead of really, I don't know, like, because it also has to be like theologically, to represent something. And I think you are doing that, but I don't know. So like now, even me, listening to you and like, hearing you out, I'm baffled as to, which camp, and as you're saying, it's not that easy as just setting it in one category. But I do remember a nun when I was growing up in LA. She would make art, and I remember some of the art that she would make would be kind of uh, quote unquote controversial. Like she would, I remember, uh, paint God as a woman, having a feminine, but she would say, God the Father, But this is just in her words, from what I remember. This is just how I prayed, and this is how God comes to me as like a motherly. And so that probably would not fit under sacred art, but it can totally fit under devotional art. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that, this it's just an interesting question to get into the weeds about. So I'm it's just interesting that we're really going down this route. But I'm happy to do it. I think that if someone is taking time to make art and putting it out there, there's something else going on that's not just I'm making art sort of in a vacuum for my personal prayerful journey. I think whether you want to call it sacred art or not, whatever, but I think there can be something, it seems like in order for an artist to kind of get out of that mode, I think, of course, there has to be responsibility that the artist has for what they're creating and what they're putting out there if they are outright saying, okay, this is sacred art and I label it. So it's kind of that feels a little counterintuitive or something. It feels a little bit um I don't know. I hate to say it, but sometimes I look at artists who are kind of using that label and marketing their work in such a way that it's like it just becomes a little bit more about the commercial quality or something. All of a sudden, it feels a little different to me than, say, looking back at art history. I don't know, would Giotto have gone around marketing himself as I'm Giotto, I'm a sacred artist, and like this is where you can find all my stuff? It's like, I don't know, I don't think so, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with whatever people need to get their stuff out there, and I think it's okay to use language for those things. But at the same time, I think when I see great, what I would call sacred art out in the world, like out in the wild, using again the example of Giotto, his frescoes in Assisi at the St. Francis Basilica are so stunning and so beautiful and so timeless. At the time, I mean, I think he would have been very regarded for his work, but at the same time, he is working and creating this new iconography in a way that wasn't really happening at that time. I think his work was spinning off of what was before, but in a very like new and innovative sort of modern way. And I love Giotto for that. I mean I love his work alone, but I like to think about artists like Giotto throughout art history who created beautiful works for the church and for devotion, for the people who were kind of pushing the limits, knowing their heritage and knowing the history of images in the church, but who were kind of taking it like, okay, this is the next step, and this is where, and God is using my unique gifts and talents as an artist to contribute to this history and to like build on it. So again, it's like, does it have to be labeled a certain way? I don't know. I guess the more and more we're talking about it, I'm like, I don't, what does the phrase sacred art even mean now? It's like, it's kind of like this ambiguous cloud for me at the moment.
But
The more we talk about it,
what's
and I
good?
feel like
It's
I've
good to
kind of
talk.
dug some holes, but
It's good to talk about it though.
yeah, and I don't know if any of this is answering your actual questions about
Oh,
this topic, but this is really more just like my kind of unfiltered musings, and things that I think about a lot and am inspired by, especially when it comes to artists who have gone before me, who have done weird and cool, like slightly avant-garde things for their time, but we don't think about them today in that way. We think of Giotto as like this classic great artist, right? And so I wonder if he may have had his own battles to fight a little bit during his time, and if everyone like actually really loved his work or not, you know?
Well, something that you were saying about Giotto, is that how you say his name?
Yeah, it's Giotto.
Giotto or whatever.
Yeah, I'm
G
sure it's pronounced a little differently. We're,
it's not gelato, just making sure.
no.
Okay. Oh, something that you were saying about him, which caught my attention, was um, well, kind of comparing today, where there's like huge marketing, and I get it, but also back in those days, or just back in the day, you're not going to be marketing yourself. Hey, I'm a sacred artist, buy my stuff. Um, I don't think so, not like that. But I think, like, if, let's say going with you, Aaron. Let's say um, the Pope, the Pope, called you and asked you, Aaron, I love you're an American. I'm an American. I would like an American touch. Can you come to Rome? We'll pay for you. Come to the Vatican and make some sacred art for me. Would you go?
Yeah, why not?
Of course.
Great opportunity.
But now, in my opinion, because it's been commissioned by the church, for me, it's like that art that you're doing, that's automatically elevated to sacred art automatically because the church has kind of called you to do it. But what I'm trying to get to is like it's the church. I know listeners, like I'm trying to be like neutral as possible. Like the church is calling
Sometimes
you.
you can't be so neutral in this regard. I don't think you can. It's
Yeah,
okay.
you can't. Yeah, it's hard. But like when the church calls you, it's like automatically like then it would be considered sacred art. But like it's different from like you calling it, yes, this is sacred art. And like kind of like I don't know, like marketing. I don't know, like dude, like maybe I need to get out of these weeds for a
No,
second.
yeah, it's all good. And we've opened up a big Pandora's box of things for sure. But maybe one way of capping it would be to say, I think, um, y- there have been so many different artists throughout time who have been commissioned by the church to create beautiful works that lead people into a deeper conversion. And I also think it's important to note, I think you mentioned this earlier too, that not every artist, I mean, all of us are imperfect, right? And there's always going to be some kind of like inner tension or division as just even outside of being an artist, just in general, but especially for artists who are really in the like very vulnerable and sometimes of, warfare kind of feeling space of creation and approaching our studio, not always knowing what's going to come out. And if the forces that are driving my work are good or evil, like there is really this kind of like intense spiritual battle that happens, I think, for artists. But I think it's important to note too that a lot of some of the work made by artists for the church has come from very broken people, right? And of course, people always use Caravaggio as an example. I don't know if you know much about his history, but you know, it's interesting that we haven't like canceled Caravaggio or something,
Yeah.
taking down his murals because he like murdered someone in cold blood. Like that's really tough. But we see so much beauty and like his work is amazing. And he was very like I think another artist who's very innovative for his time and but had his own problems. Like I think he just had some issues, but that I think for whatever reason that feels important to note too in this conversation because I think it can be easy to also start to get to like this other end of the road of like, oh, like if you're making sacred art, if you're an artist commissioned by the church for something, does the work also have to be like we're examining that person and they're like whether what they're making is heretical or not or what like I don't know. These are all important questions, but at the same time, I think God can use so many different vessels, and God does use artists of all kinds to speak a word into the culture and to provide like a shining light of truth, goodness, and beauty in a way that can transform hearts, no matter who the person is. So I say all that to kind of wrap up this conversation of like, what is sacred art, what's not. But it's like, at the end of the day, I don't know that I really care that much. And that sounds like crazy, but maybe not. I think um
Like you don't care, but you do care.
like I don't care in that I care very deeply if artwork is transforming hearts and transforming culture and giving people nourishment. And I know it when I see it. And maybe that has a very realistic depiction of Jesus in it. Maybe it doesn't at all. Maybe it's like something like super abstract and like otherworldly, you know? That's what I mean. I don't like I don't care like flippantly. It's just for me I feel very like open and interested in all artwork and all art forms that have that like capacity to draw someone in. And it's hard for me to have a very strict limit or categorization on it, if that makes sense.
Well, something that, and we'll wrap this up. Something that I see very fascinating is that maybe in the past, some artists, well, all of us come from some form of brokenness, maybe, or I don't know, imperfection. But like
All
you're,
of us have sinned.
hmm?
So like by nature, all of
Yeah,
us have fallen.
yeah.
Like
But you're saying that like who Caravaggio, is that how you pronounce his name?
yes, Caravaggio.
Caravaggio. Oh, wow, like he has been canceled today. But I think the interesting thing about technology and how in our day information gets passed so quickly, where I think there's also a standard not only on the art but also on the artist. And you take for example Rupnik.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, if pre-scandal, pre the stupid things he allegedly did, I would say, wow, that's beautiful art. But now if I see it, it's like, dude, take that down, like get that out of here.
Well, and
Uh,
people, yeah, I've noticed like people have different feelings about his work even before the scandals. Like, I have at least a couple of friends who are like, even without the scandals, they don't like his work.
mhm.
So, people kind of have all sorts of opinions about contemporary art. But anyway, continue. Sorry, that's like
No, it's good to talk, and it's just that I think now if you're gonna be a sacred art or an artist who depicts religious themes, I think it's not only for me, it's not only the art, but I think there's also and I think you said this too earlier, like a bit of a responsibility, not only with trying to stay within the frame of uh, depicting something accurately and without going into the, let's say, heretical, but there's also like, I don't know, standard of being a good person. I don't
hmm,
know. Like,
yeah.
do you see yourself as an artist, let's say for now, religious artist? Does that put more responsibility on your personal life?
Well, what I would say to that is even the term religious artist, it's funny, like Catholic artist or religious artist. Um, you know, Flannery O'Connor has a great quote about that, and I'm gonna butcher it, but something like, I'm not a Catholic artist, I'm an artist because I'm Catholic. It's something like that. where she sort of gets a little cranky about this like boxing in of, oh, you're a Catholic writer, right? Like you're Catholic. Oh, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm Catholic, and I am like an artist because I am Catholic, because of the way I see the world and because of the faith that I've been given. But that doesn't mean I always would call myself like a Catholic artist. Um, However, what I will say is I feel very strongly, and so much of my life, honestly, is taken up by this, what I'm about to say, but I feel any artist who is of faith, who is Christian, Catholic, who's really trying to grow in their faith and is taking that seriously and is also equally seriously pursuing their craft, whatever it is, should really deeply consider what that means and should look for great spiritual guides in their life and good spiritual models and people who can actually walk with them in that, and live out of that space and like really take that seriously and not pass by the opportunity to go deeper in their spirituality in a way that will impact their artwork and vice versa. I mean, like how often do you find artists who it's like, oh, I'm just trying to pay the bills and I don't know, I don't really have time. It's like, okay, just take 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day and like make something, work on something, and live out of that like layer of your this artistic vocation that you've been given, and really let that be a place where God's grace can operate. So I guess like I see this integration that is possible for artists who want that and who want to like kind of go this route of I want to be holy and live a life of holiness and live a life within the church that is like ordered and beautiful and that impacts everyone around me for good. And I carry that into my artistic practice. That naturally will have this like impact on the work that's created in a great way. And I've seen this. I've been running directing Art House TV since we're founded in 2020 and have worked with countless artists of all kinds who have who I've seen grow in both of these areas or who I've seen, really try to kind of come along and whose work I've helped produce and put forth into our local kind of New York City art scene. And it's just like it is very beautiful getting to see that kind of metamorphosis, like this impact that that kind of like approach to life and approach to one's artistic practice can have on that person, but then have like this kind of chain beautiful reaction on the people around them who are seeing the work that they're producing. Does that mean it has to be overtly Catholic looking artwork? No. And oftentimes it's not, especially in New York and just in kind of this culture that we're in here and the visual culture, artistic performance culture, it's often not. But the work is always an invitation to something deeper and that can really call forth an audience member or receiver of the artwork into like another step, or into like at least this artist experience of their faith and their life. So again, like I firmly believe that, and I'm really more here speaking about artists who are like in that vein. And again, would never discount artists who are atheists, who are whatever, like all over the spectrum of in terms of faith or culture, lifestyle, whatever practice, um, and the way that God can in fact use those artists as well. Like that is always on the table, and like often my heart has been transformed at times equally as much as like artwork that I've seen from some of my Catholic friends. And so I think there's room for all of it. It's just how do you want to categorize it? How do you want to look at it? I don't know. I think it's up to every person. But certainly, I do think that artists who are really trying to take their faith and their practice very seriously should be paid attention to and given resources and community people just who can like help them do that and receive the work as well. So that's my soapbox.
Well, yeah, we're gonna get out of this one because I feel like I can ask another question on this, and we will both be going for another 6 hours. But that just shows how much, uh, it's just interesting to talk about these things. But I'm gonna get out of that real quick because what I asked in the beginning, the question I think was like, what category would you put yourself in, or genre, or what?
Yeah.
And actually, the funny thing is that's like a pre-question because what I do with my guests on the podcast is first like explore like what is their art, so like what form, like what is it, and then we'll get into their background. So I feel like we did the whole podcast really hitting on these important concepts, but I think it was also fun.
We
But
can always do a round two.
we can always do round two. But
I'm open to that.
I
Just so
do I do want to get to know you more. And the first question actually that I ask all my guests after, uh, what do you call it? Pinpointing what their expressive form is. Like the first question after that is asking. I'll ask you this question: what sparked your love for creativity to begin with?
honestly, ever since I can remember, I have been an artist. I there's not been like a time of my life that I feel like I didn't understand that that was a big part of my calling in life was to be creative, to be an artist. I remember being a toddler and doing crayon drawings under our kitchen table and just and giving them to my parents and just whatever. Like that's always been a part of my program.
Okay, hold on.
So
When you said that you were under the kitchen table, I thought that you were doing graffiti and you were, but then
I
you
was
said,
doing some of that too.
"Oh, you're doing some
I
of
was
that." Okay.
definitely doing some like graffiti around the house. So that was definitely happening as well. But
But was there anything that really sparked it, that set it off, that started it, or were you just born with it?
I mean, I think being handed materials to make things with was really a big that was a big thing for me. And I know I think of course a lot of kids are given crayons, paper, what like, like finger painting in preschool, whatever. But I think really for me, like all I needed to go was to have something in front of me that I could like start drawing with and like figure out that this is what I love and that as I'm doing this, I'm getting a buzz and I'm getting like very energized.
A
I
buzz.
have like a joy, that comes from that very naturally. And so that to me is a signifier that I should follow that. And I think everyone can say that about, when you kind of find your calling or whatever you're meant to do in life, you feel like very activated as you're doing it and very excited. Um, and but at a certain point, my parents started to, notice this and notice that I was doing a lot of art, that I was very excited about it. And so then they started putting me in like after school classes at the community center, or I did private watercolor lessons with a woman in my neighborhood named Bernice, who was very influential for me, kind of in my middle school years, just riding my bike over to her house and her spending this like one-on-one time with me, teaching me how to do watercolor from like magazine images of flowers and butterflies and stuff. But I like that was like everything to me looking back on it. Um, and so those were moments that it became like more and more clear that I love just having dedicated time to do this and having other people around that are doing it with me and that are excited and encouraging. Often there's, it's not just, you're not just an artist in a vacuum, you're with other artists around you, either who are doing their own stuff, but it's exciting and you kind of learn from each other, or you're in, for example, like a print shop and you're doing a big woodcut carving and then you're ready to print and you need some help. Someone grabs the other side and they help you print it. And it's like becomes this shared kind of community experience of making art. And so for me, those kinds of elements started to weave into my experience as an artist growing up, and learning what that meant for me and for my life was very important.
So you've been sharing with us about your background, how you got started. Also, you on your bike pedaling, through the storms, through the sunshine, to go and learn how to do watercolors, etc. Now you're an adult, and we did go back. We did talk earlier about the religious themes, that journalistic approach, the poetry, the inspiration. And I wanted to say there's a saint. Maybe you can help me with this. So I'm going to get you involved. There's a saint, I can't remember who said something like, um, when you sing, you pray twice. Do you know who that saint was?
No, but I've definitely heard that
Heard.
phrase.
Okay. When you're painting or when you're creating, when you're being creative, does it come off as a prayer for you as well? Or is it merely, I don't want to say merely, or is it just creating?
Yeah, I think painting and prayer for me are the same. I feel like on a great day, I'm coming into my studio. I feel surrendered. I feel recollected, ready to go, and I'm able to kind of enter into this sort of, embodied and mental state of prayer. At the same time, on not so good days, that can still happen. It just might not be in this perfect, slow, peaceful way that I'm describing. And I think God can use an artist who comes into their studio with open, empty hands, no matter what, no matter how that day's going or how they feel, whatever. Like God can completely operate there. And so believing that, that's really how I try to approach my work and everything that I do as it relates to painting, drawing, printmaking, talking to another artist who I'm collaborating with on a project. Everything everything can become a prayer and can be approached from this disposition of heart if we choose it. It's really up to you.
How do you choose it? I mean, because I can see it's really close, something close to your heart, and you even mentioned earlier, about the soul. Um, how does one choose, or how do you choose to make your paintings, your creativity a prayer? Like, are there steps? Can you walk us through how, if let's say someone in the audience, uh, religious or even non-religious, is interested in, I want to pray and make paintings, and but how do you do that?
Well, I think it needs to start from, of course, this an interest or a desire for prayer. Otherwise, it's kind of like performance or something. And I think honestly, just even having an inkling of like I give you this time, Lord. Like use me and we're collaborating together. Even that, it's like such a simple, quick prayer, but can change the way a whole hour painting or whatever your practice is, how it goes. And so I would say like don't overthink it. It's not. I don't know that I don't come into my studio every day praying a whole rosary to get ready. Although that would be a beautiful way to start. Um, I for me I find that it's helpful to just come in and really take a second to take a breath, have a little prayer of humility before God, and approach my materials and approach with what often has come out of other times of prayer or out of experiences from my life. And what I mean by other times of prayer is every morning I take some time to meditate and pray with the daily readings or some other spiritual reading and really ask God to, to speak to me and to be with me, to also apply what comes out of that time of prayer to my life, for my good. And so there's a lot of sometimes there are images or things that can even come out of that time of just of simply reading and really contemplating the word of God that then okay, like maybe an image comes up, I like do a quick sketch little thing in my prayer journal and bring that later to my studio and bring it into what I'm doing. And so that becomes like something that started like a little kernel that happened in a time of just sitting and having like mental prayer at the start of my day and grows into something crazy, crazy, big, huge, whatever. Or it's just like a small painting or something or a small print that again it's like it starts here in this moment of prayer but can you know over time become this sort of deeper more involved project and I just with all of that whether it's a small thing in my prayer journal or going for some like grandiose kind of big work on fabric or something in my studio, I'm trying to keep in mind this presence of God with me and creating with me, and that at the end of the day, I'm completely dependent on Him, and that He's the ultimate master artist of my life who created me. And so that kind of breeds a really interesting artistic creative process if you take that seriously. And I think it can be different for every person how that's like lived out maybe, but
If you weren't creating with prayer, because I know you're very prayerful in your approach, but let's say you weren't a prayerful person. I'm not saying, let's say you're a bad person, but just say you weren't a prayerful person. I can still envision you being an artist, no matter what timeline or universe. I think you would
uh,
always be an artist. But let's say you were not doing this form of creativity with these themes. What do you think you would be painting, or what would you be creating?
honestly, that's kind of a hard question to answer because I literally have no idea. I mean, it's it's really hard to kind of concretely try to imagine my a whole other alternate universe of my artwork. And I don't want to like think about okay, like what would that I don't know. There's just something funny about that question for me. I don't know what it is. Maybe I need to like process and pray about it or something. But
Or okay, even today, like I know you have a lot of religious themes, but do you ever tackle secular themes or things that are maybe not, just not really devotional? Or is everything a reflection of your prayer life?
well, I think everything is seen, everything that is created by an artist is coming out of their lens. And so, you know, I don't know that like depending on the day, I'm making any artwork that's like more holy than the next day or something. It's like a weird way to think about kind of categorizing it or something. But yeah, I mean, I love landscape. I love portraiture. Again, though, it's like Flannery O'Connor's quote is so great about like I am an artist because I'm Catholic. I'm not necessarily quote unquote Catholic artist. I don't know. You know, there's something about that that's like resounds very deeply with me. And so I think the way that I see the world around me and the way that I'm then like transmitting it into a whole other material is definitely it all kind of like mixes together somehow. And I don't always like can't always pinpoint how, but I know that it's happening because of this like worldview that I have and that I've tried to kind of cultivate over time as well as a person who's very excited about spirituality and about a life, a Christian life. So,
So I'm gonna fast forward because usually in the podcast we go through the timeline of each guest, but For the sake of time on this podcast, I wanted to fast forward because we see from your childhood, just already you're really getting involved to today. You're involved in your art every day, taking time, but you've also found the energy. You've really literally found the energy to not only create art, but also to, and you already touched about it. Uh, you started I don't know, like art too. Can you tell us what this art, what is it that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so Art House 2B. So this is a Catholic arts nonprofit, and we're located in New York City. And we help artists in their spiritual journeys. We help artists in their artistic journeys. We're kind of trying to hit every angle so that artists can be well supported by their peers and by also other mentors who can help them create great work that restores the culture. And so that's sort of our vision is to restore the hearts of artists so that the culture can then be restored in turn.
Why did
And
you start it?
well, we started because in the pandemic, honestly, there was just everything was closed. Every gallery and theater in New York City pretty much was shut down for months and months up until maybe like fall of 2020 is when things started to open up more. And I just myself and a few friends felt very weird about that. I felt pretty annoyed by it after a while. And so I also love to organize and to do kind of homespun gallery shows or performances, things like that. Just naturally, that's kind of how I am. And so love to gather people as well. And so we came up with this idea to do a mass for artists. And so that was our first event in August 2020. And so we had maybe about 30 people come for that event. We had a special mass in a church and had a priest who came and and the homily was very encouraging to artists. And then afterwards, we had performances and a gallery show involving maybe 20 artists or so. And it was just such a wake up call, I think, for all of us, and was such a joy to get to do something like that, even if it was quite small and very grassroots. It just felt right, and it felt like what was exactly needed for that time and for the artists involved. So from there, we continued, and artists kept coming up to me and to other people on our team that was growing and having ideas of, oh, like, can I do this film screening for my short film? Can I do this? I have photography. I want to do a show. Can I? So it started to just become this very organically growing, fruitful thing. And I would say Art House TV is very much like by artists for artists. And it's remained that way since. And we're still a team of artists at the leadership of Art House TV and who are now the staff or who are volunteering or who are on the board. It's very much like an artist driven and like people who care very deeply about the arts and understand our mission who are at the top and really trying to kind of continue to deepen and expand this network of artists and audiences who are impacted by the work that we produce.
So, just quick note to the audience, because hi audience, I've done quite a few episodes, and I've interviewed many people on both of my podcasts, and at least for this podcast, I've already interviewed probably at the time of this recording about 50 different individuals, and I think Erin, you're probably the first person that I've actually met in person because everyone else I've just
Yeah.
I've done the interviews. But my question for you is because when I did go to New York, it was in I think Annunciation Church and
uh,
Harlem,
mhm. Yep.
and you had like a gallery going or art exhibit. Was that before Art House to be was born?
No, that was probably 2 years in. I'm trying to remember when that was exactly, but
It
I
was
think
when
I had a
you
show up, right? It
what?
was I had like a solo show up that you came and saw. Is that right? Or was it a different show?
It was a solo. Yeah, it was still during the pandemic.
Right, but was it my work that you saw, or was it like a group of people's work?
It was just you.
Okay, so it was probably 2021 then. So we would have been about a year and change
So
into
our
doing.
house to be was already promoted and everything.
Yeah, we started the first Mass for Artists that I just shared about was our first event and our technically like our founding date. So
Well, the way we met, I don't know if do you remember?
was it over Instagram or something? I think.
Yeah, do you remember the story?
No.
No, I was
I'm
in a
nervous.
well, I went to New York because I was gonna meet up with somebody, but this person unfortunately canceled. So I go to New York and I'm like, dude, like, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm
Oh
supposed to meet
yeah.
this person and then they cancel, and that happens. But I just went on Instagram search for like art, and then I put like religious art, Catholic art, and then I came upon your post about art gallery, and I think I saw you. Was it? Well, I saw your post, and then I sent you a DM like, "Hey, can I go check it out?" And you're like, "Yeah, come on."
Yeah,
So
nice.
that
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was that was it. So thank you so much for your hospitality and
Yeah.
welcoming me. No, I had nothing, and then from there, I met some amazing people over at St. Vincent's. I don't know if you remember.
Nice.
So it just I don't know. There are things in life where you don't know where you're going, where I didn't know where I was going, but I still felt that God knew where I was going. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't express myself properly. I don't have that ability. But you get what I'm saying, I hope.
Yeah, and also I think New York City is kind of a like a magical place for those kinds of connections and providential encounters, I've found. And so you were obviously very open to that and like searching, Instagram, where's the Catholic art scene, and you found Art House. So um yeah, I'm not surprised. Like that's I feel like that kind of stuff happens here all the time and it's just beautiful.
Well, it was you and a friend. I believe her name was Kate.
Katie. Yep.
Shout out to Katie. And the both of you suggested I go to St. Vincent's
Uh-huh.
in Lexington. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's on Lexington 66.
So I go there, and of course, I'm feeling lost because I was gonna spend like a weekend with a friend who canceled. So I'm feeling lost. Like, what am I doing here? I'm in church, and then when I'm leaving the church, I'm holding the door open for the next person, and this person says, "Ryan," and I'm like who said my name? I'm in a place where like nobody knows me, and it was a friend from like 10 years ago. And I'm all like, "Hey, what's up?" He's like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I'm like, "What are you doing here?" But it's just like I don't know, like I don't know. I don't just sometimes I feel like it's hard walking with God, and maybe I'm not walking with God, but then like little things happen where it's like if I did not have that friend cancel, I wouldn't have gone to your art gallery. I wouldn't have reconnected with a friend who I had lost contact with, and I wouldn't probably be doing this podcast because meeting you and seeing that inspiration of you doing the gallery and you being so welcoming, and of course seeing other artists as well, just left a spark in me that's touched my life. So thank you.
Cool. You're welcome. Thank you. That was a great testimonial to our connection and to Art House TV. That's really beautiful, and I appreciate you sharing that and just hearing that story. It is like amazing what can happen from one encounter of creativity or like one spark, one witness seeing someone else do something and being inspired by it, how that can like ripple out.
Well, something I wanted to tackle on to start kind of wrapping this up in a moment is you mentioned Art House to be, and it is not it's not free, I assume. There's a lot of money that goes into it. Are you open to like donations or things like that?
Yeah, totally. And thanks for asking. Yeah, we're completely donor sponsored. Like we everything that we do is because of the generosity of our benefactors and donors. And so this we do so much programming here in the city for artists, like I said. And so because of that, I'm not, I really want this to be accessible to artists, everything that we do and the opportunities that we present. And so because of that, we're completely supported by people who really believe in what we're doing. So yeah, our website is a good place to look and see what we're doing. We also have all of our upcoming events there as well. So if you're in the New York City or the tri-state area, or if you're ever just visiting New York and want to see if we have something coming up, I recommend everyone check it out. It's arthouse2b, letter two, sorry, number two, letter B.org. Arthouse2b.org. And we also have there a page about donations if anyone's interested in that. Um, so yeah, it would be great to see some audience members maybe come out and meet in person too, if anyone's around. But
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing all about your creative journey, also with the theme on or the discussion on what is art and sacred
yeah,
art and devotional art. And
yeah, I didn't know it was gonna go that route, but
I,
I'm
I,
okay with
I,
it.
I didn't either. I mean, like, I was just trying to clarify first, and then it went into this whole, you said Pandora's box, but for me, I see it more as it was just a flood of, inspiring conversation. It was for
Great.
me. But now
Hopefully
we
not too many hot takes from me.
nothing
Always
controversial.
if you want.
But now, like, we're going to be wrapping this up soon, and there's some questions that I ask at the end for each guest. And the first question is, are there any upcoming artists out there, or artists who've been out there but don't have the recognition that they deserve? Is there anyone out there whom you suggest we keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I would say there are a few artists that come to mind who I've had the pleasure of working with recently and who I will be working with. And so one being Josephine Dubern, who is an amazing artist. She's based in Montreal. She's also a mother, and she and I worked together to produce a solo show of many of her paintings last fall at the Sheen Center for Thought and Culture in Soho here in New York. And just her work is really lovely. You want to if you want to get more kind of in this realm of sacred art, but that's doesn't look like whatever kind of the category of sacred art that we talked about earlier. I think she's a great example and does a really lovely job with abstraction and really integrating her prayer and her meditation into what she does. I also I would say there's another artist, Eduardo Crespo, who similarly is, but in very different aesthetic, is creating very interesting and very thoughtful, beautiful work in that realm of abstraction. And who, yeah, if you look him up, his work is online, and he's had a really beautiful journey as well as an artist and kind of in his faith and conversion. And we're planning to do a solo show of his work with Art House 2B later this year, so stay tuned for that. And finally, this artist I mentioned earlier, Alphonse Borisovich. I yeah, can't recommend enough. I think as someone as a giant whose shoulders I occasionally get to stand on in my work with Art House and as a visual artist myself, navigating the waters of contemporary aesthetics and what does it mean to be Catholic making in this world. And he has a book coming out that I'll actually be moderating a conversation with him about May 5th at St. Boniface Oratory, which is in Brooklyn. And the book is called Painting Prayer: Why Faith Needs Art and Art Needs Faith. So it's written by Alphonse, published by Orbis Books, and I'm really excited to sink my teeth into the book. I'm gonna, I think, get it this week to start reading. But I feel like it kind of goes into this whole realm of everything we've been talking about. So would recommend people check out that book too, and come to the event if you're around May 5th.
All right. And of 2026, for those who are listening, you might be listening to in the
Ah,
future,
yes.
2026. It'd be funny if it's like 2027 and they go to New York and like, hey, where's everybody?
Yeah, yeah. And
Uh,
everything's on our website, like I said, for all these things, arthouse2b.org, upcoming events. So,
and then now for the last question of the podcast, Erin, why is creativity important for you?
well, gosh, I feel like everything we've talked about today kind of answers that. Creativity is important for me because I have seen the capacity for greatness from all kinds of different artists and performers, musicians, dancers, everything. I see that creativity, when pursued in excellence and when done very well and from a heart that is open and surrendered to what God wants for their work, is has the complete ability to transform hearts and to impact an entire society. And I think we see that throughout history, but for me personally, I'm seeing it in real time in New York City, in this kind of creative capital of America. And so I feel very convinced of this. And so I see creativity, I guess, why it's important to me. It's about other people and other artists. And I also experience it firsthand as an artist and feel that we have this immense responsibility. And it's also a very fun responsibility in a way if it's looked at rightly, to really be able to transform a whole landscape or to just transform one person's world and like have some impact that could really kind of shift one person's kind of universe, just simply by seeing a piece of artwork or seeing a performance that has a deep spiritual impact. So
Well, thank you so much, Erin, for sharing your love for creativity as well as your love for prayer and the combination of the two. And as we see, it gave birth to arthouse2b.org. If people are interested in learning more about you or even connecting with you, is there a way that they can do so?
yeah, I would say go to my Instagram or my website, and I can share those with you if you want to put them in the caption. But my Instagram is Erin K McAtee, like ERIN.K.MCATE. My website is erinkmcatee.com. So if you're more curious about my personal artwork, and then for my organization, Art House TV, we're on Instagram and we have our website, as I mentioned. So
All right. Well, thank you so much, Erin, for being a fun guest today. This has
yeah,
been
thank you.
an exploration. I feel like I've just traveled the world and back, and I've traveled through time talking about different artists, and it's been amazing. So thanks so much. And to those in the audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this episode, which I hope you did, like I did, I enjoyed this. You can help by hitting that like button or even subscribing so you can watch other episodes as well over on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, feel free to follow and even leave a review or comment as well, as that always helps the podcast. And please feel free to share this episode as well so that more people can encounter the awesome creativity that was expressed today by our guest, Erin. And you can help me out as well because I need the help as well to keep the podcast going. And you can do so by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/truth7. I feel like I'm doing a commercial. Every time I do this, I feel like I Love Lucy when she's doing the never mind. Anyways,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I got
the
you.
you got me. So anyways, everybody, all your contributions help me to keep the podcast going and help me to do things like pay the bills and to keep software up and things like Zoom and all that. So all of your contributions really make a huge impact. With that being said, thank you everybody for tuning in. And Erin McAtee, thank you so much for being an awesome guest on Creativity Worth Expressing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.